Sadiq Khan blasted for London bloodbath, put the armed forces on London streets. A caller, known as Stephanie, suggested the London mayor could use alternative tactics to help curb the issue of violent crime in London. Speaking on LBC, she said, "What about putting plain-clothed army soldiers on our streets if you are so underfunded with police?" The London mayor replied, "On the issue of the army, we do have a protocol in place if there is a terrorist attack on our city. We can use the army to backfill some of the buildings that armed police protect. That probably doesn't exist, and it is a national government issue, doesn't exist for non-terrorist related crime. What we have done, Stephanie, since I became mayor is we have increased the number of armed response officers and armed response units. You will be aware, I am sure, where we recently commemorated a year on from the horrible terror attack on London Bridge. London Bridge is an example where our armed officers, because of the increase in investment, were able to respond to the attack in less than 8 minutes because we have got additional armed response officers and armed response vehicles. We have invested in armed response vehicles and armed response officers. But, again, the bad news is Stephanie and the Police Federation would make this point for me. The armed response officers loss since 2010, because of government cuts, still hasn't been replaced by the additional ones we have added in. You will appreciate, Stephanie, I don't think anyone would want armed officers from the army walking the streets of London, but we are looking at all options in relation to making sure we have got the right number of armed officers in our city." Host James O'Brien then demanded to know what number of officers Mr. Khan would like without being able to pass the buck to central government. He replied, "New York has a smaller population than us, but New York has 36,000 police officers plus 8,000 additional staff to help them. I'm not suggesting the government is going to give us 36,000 officers, but we had 32,000 in the recent past. 36,000 would be the ideal scenario, but any increase from the government would be welcome." Earlier in the show, Mr. Khan said the Met Police currently has less than 30,000 police officers. The debate comes amid a spate of killings in the capital this year, as more than 60 have been killed in London in 2018. Earlier this week, a teenager was stabbed and seriously injured outside Liverpool Street Station during rush hour. Mr. Khan tweeted earlier this week, "The government is failing in its primary duty to ensure the safety and security of the public." Following massive government cuts to police forces over the course of nearly 8 years, crime is rising across the country, particularly violent crime such as knife crime and robbery.